and welcome to the ZAFFIE Show. We're happy to be here and hope that you will join us. We're going to have a very interesting subject today, and I hope I don't get arrested and put in jail somewhere. I was watching the news this morning, and I feel so bad about that hurricane. Did you see it?
Yes, I have.
Those poor people. And from what they said, they have a few more days of it. The water's ferocious, the wind is terrible. Oh, it's an awful thing. I have a very interesting guest, and it's William King, and he's our sheriff. And when I say sheriff, it reminds me of the westerns I watch. The sheriff is always doing good. He's there to take care of us and make sure that things go well.
Right. Great. Yeah. Well, actually, thank you very much for having me. I mean, it's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah. I mean, someone told me that you were the Southern Maine Oprah. Oh. So I think this is really it's quite it's an honor. But you know, you mentioned sheriff, and do you know the origin of the sheriff's office?
Well, tell us about it.
It's actually from Old England, and in America we had, instead of having capitals, we had shire towns, and Alfred was the first shire town in Maine, and in every shire town, the king of England would have a reeve, and the reeve was supposed to be to keep order in the shire town, and also collect taxes, and also just basically be the person that would report to the king. And eventually so you had in every shire town, every shire, you had a reeve. So eventually through time, it was shire, reeve, and eventually it just transformed into sheriff. So the sheriff of each county, if you will, the shires were really counties. It kind of every county has a sheriff.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And you know, we obviously we maintain the jails, and we provide policing services to those communities that don't have an organized police department, and we take care of civil process. So we do a lot of the similar duties.
Well, the sheriff is always a good guy.
Well, you know, and it wasn't always that way. Yeah, sheriffs actually have a very sordid past. There was back in the early days, sheriffs were oftentimes corrupt, like the sheriff of Nottingham and that type of thing. But because they had charge of the jail, I mean, in their stories, I mean, the sheriffs, we've really progressed much since our early days. But they would do things like charge people to go to jail, or charge people food when they were in jail, and if you had to have a court date, they would accept bribes to get the quicker court date. So we've really professionalized the sheriff's profession.
Now, you've been a sheriff for many years.
Well, I've been the sheriff for 4 years, and I'm up for re-election, and it may be another 4 years for me, and I certainly hope that's the case. But I've been with the sheriff's office for a total of 8 years. I was the chief deputy prior to that. And I love my job. Oh,
I was going to ask you how you got interested in it. You just love it.
I do. I really do. I love law enforcement. I love being at the sheriff's office because I get to work, you know, in the police field, and I also get to work in the corrections field, and I also get to work in the civil process. And the most important thing that I get to do is interact with the community members. I mean, it's just wonderful to have this opportunity to go and, you know, be on this show, or I get to speak at Rotary clubs. I get to talk to the elderly population. I just get to talk to the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts. I just have such a diverse time. I get up every day, and I can't wait to get to work.
That's wonderful. That's good.
Yeah.
How do you handle all these things that I read in the paper? There's so many different things that you're called for.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think probably the things that you read in the paper have to do with the policing services, the different crimes that we investigate. Mm-hmm. And I do make a practice to do a lot of news releases, because I want the public to know how responsive the sheriff's office is. We, in York County, there are 29 towns and cities, and the sheriff is responsible to provide policing services to those towns and cities without an organized police department. So in your viewing public, if you live in Biddeford or Saco or Sanford, that they have their own police departments, and although we have authority because they're within York County, we typically don't provide policing services there. We will if we're asked. But in those towns like Cornish, Limerick, Alfred, and all those towns that do not have a police department, we're the primary police department, if you will. We don't have adequate staffing.
I was just going to ask you, you need a lot of people to do that.
You really do. The Department of Justice have done studies on this, and they recommend 1.7 officers for every 1,000 people in a rural setting, and that's what we are. We're a rural setting. So it's, I'm not good with my math, but there's approximately, let's just say, 50,000 people within those 14 communities that don't have a police department. So, I mean, we should have, I think the last time I looked at it, it was like 86 officers that we should have. Well, we don't have that. But what we have done is that we've asked the state police to help us out. So the state police provide policing services to 5 of those communities, primary policing services. We still respond. We work collaboratively with the state police. But they really help us out with providing the basic police services. But under the 9 other towns, we're kind of it. And some towns have actually helped us out by hiring contract deputies. And what a contract deputy is that they'll pay for the deputy's salary and his vehicle, and that deputy exclusively works just for that town. For example, in Arundel, which is a very busy town, they hired 2 contract deputies. So those contract deputies work exclusively in Arundel, taking care of those calls for service in that town, and it really enhances the quality of life. But we are busy. It really is.
You certainly are busy, and it seems like you're getting busier and busier.
And, you know, and my hat is off. I mean, all law enforcement is under siege, unfortunately. Every time you do something, you got a cell phone video, so you really have to be, I wouldn't want to say on guard, but you really have to really maintain your professionalism at all times. And the thing about York County deputies, and I have the greatest respect for them, because they're out there and their backup might be 30 minutes away. So they really have to use a lot of verbal judo. They really have to use a lot of de-escalation techniques to try to keep things calm. And arrest is not our first option. We're always looking for voluntary compliance. We're trying to correct any type of aberrant behavior before we have to actually arrest somebody.
I bet you get called out at different hours.
Well, I don't, but I mean, I do occasionally if it's something big. But we have the command structure. I have a patrol commander. His name is Paul Mitchell. He comes from he's retired from the Fairfax County Police Department. It's a very large police department, so he's very well versed and understands all aspects of policing services. And he gets called out a lot. And I have my Chief Deputy Tom Barron, who actually hails from York. He spent 35 years as a York police sergeant. So it was they're very, very good. And I think that's the most important thing that makes my job so rewarding, is I have such a fantastic staff. You know, the command staff is just, it's really second to none. Actually, Chief Barron got the Manager of the Year by the Maine Sheriff's Association 2 years ago. For the jail, my jail administrator, Mike Vitiello, actually is a certified jail manager. And there's only 2 in the state of Maine.
And how many jails?
Oh, 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what they have to do.
Well, the jail is a very interesting place. We have the second largest jail in the state of Maine.
Are you talking about Alfred?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I think, have you taken a tour?
No,
I think we need to get you a tour.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I do.
Good, yeah. There's two types of jails. There's a direct supervision jail, and there's a jail the type of jail is called a linear supervision. Now, and why this is important, in a linear supervision jail, the inmates are in a big room, and there's nobody in the room with them. Every once in a while, a guard will look in, or a corrections officer will look in and see if everything is okay. In a direct supervision jail, is what we have, is there's a corrections officer is actually in the pod, that's what they call the big room, in the pod with the inmates.
Then they're not in a room.
They have cells.
Okay,
but
a
there's
cell.
they come out of the cells, and there's a big room where they watch TV or might play cards or play Scrabble or what have you. And in that cell, there's a little outdoor area where they can open up the door, and there's a basketball court. But it's really confined. They eat in the pod. We do medical visits. The medical people will come in, and they'll see the medical visits. If they have a visit, we'll take them out and take them down to the visiting room. But it's a very interesting place. But we do.
It doesn't sound like what I think it is.
And that's why another favorite thing about my job is working at the jail, supervising the jail, because so many people think that a jail is a scary place, and it's not a scary. If it was a scary place, I wouldn't be doing my job. In fact, it
sounds almost like a second home. Maybe not quite.
Yeah, because people are there as punishment, and that's why they're not there for punishment. So they're there. It's bad enough that they're not with their loved ones. It's bad enough that they're not able to live their life and go to Dairy Queen or do whatever they want to do. But once they're there, they're entrusted to our care. So we make sure that they have medical care. We make sure that their needs are taken care of as much. And so and I think everybody understands that they're there. And most of the people in jail, I think the last time I did a study, 70% are pre-trial. That means that you're just accused of a crime. They haven't been convicted, and they can't make the bail, or maybe maybe the crime is such that there's no bail allowed. So
But they still did a crime.
well, they're accused of a crime.
Okay.
So they're accused. They haven't been convicted yet.
Now, if I say the wrong things, it's because I don't know.
That's okay. No. That's okay. And I appreciate that you're interested. I mean,
I think maybe more people like me than you think.
Because I think I have a group from Kittery coming up in another week. I know that Rotary clubs I've given Rotary Club tours of the jail. I've given Kiwanis clubs. It's something that I like to do. It's a huge cost driver. It costs a lot of money to the taxpayers of York County to operate the jail. So I welcome the opportunity to kind of say, gee, this is what we do and this is how we do it. There's been a lot of positive changes. I think there's a lot of positive momentum. And some of the simple changes, I mean, I have the uniform, the Class A uniform, but I don't know if you've noticed for the viewing public that perhaps encounters our deputies, there's a softer uniform now with embroidered badges.
I haven't noticed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you will when you come to the jail.
I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah.
That would make something good to write about.
Yeah, that would be great because it saves money. Like this badge, we used to have these badges going into the jail, and this really could be a weapon. So now it's embroidered, and we have an embroidery machine, and the woman that runs the embroidery program, if you will, teaches inmates how to do it. So so we identify an inmate that is interested in that, and they'll come in and they'll get the shirts and they'll embroider it, and they embroider the name, and we do the hats. So it's all, and it all saves the taxpayers money.
I would never think of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, these things are all, a busy inmate is a good inmate, and a tired inmate is the best inmate. So, and again, I mean, it's just they've got to be there, and if we can.
Do most of them stay long?
No.
What's the average?
Well, that's a great question, and actually, the average, if you ask that, is only hours in jail.
Oh.
But that's because people come in, and let's say somebody gets arrested for drunk driving. They'll come in, and they get bailed out. They might be there an hour.
I see.
So, so you take that. I mean, that's still an inmate, and they've only been there for 8 hours, or they've only been there an hour, or they've been there a half hour. They get bailed, but then you have the people that are there 9 months. So when you average all that, the average stay is only a couple of days. But we have had people there for years. They've been there for years because, say, if they're accused of murder, and there's no bail allowed, or the bail is very, very high, and they're not getting bailed out. I mean, they could stay there for a very long time. We've had people for 3 years that stayed at the York County Jail. But the typical sentence is 9 months. That's how long they stay. If it's over 9 months, they'll go to the state prison.
Now, where's the state prison?
Well, there's a state prison. There's a Main Correctional Center in Wyndham. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's the Maine State Prison. It's in Warren.
Where?
Warren, Maine.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. It used to be Thomaston.
Okay.
And there's a
That's
new,
what I.
Yeah. There's a new one, and I guess that the new one opened up like 10 years ago. So yeah. So
it's a great deal to think about.
Well, there is, and I enjoy the corrections part. I enjoy the law enforcement part because anytime we can improve somebody's quality of life, and I think we do that in the communities that we serve. I think that there should be more deputies, and I'm constantly lobbying for more deputies from the county commissioners. The county commissioners hold the purse strings of the sheriff's office. So that's my job, is to go in and to try to lobby to them to get more funding so that I can hire more deputies.
Well, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me there's more and more problems.
Well, there is, and like I said, what concerns me is the backup is so far away, and we don't really do. We do a great job. I mean, we solve a lot of crimes, and we apprehend a lot of people. There's a lot going on in these communities. Another thing that we do that's often overlooked is civil process. So if somebody's getting a divorce, or somebody's getting evicted, or any type of a civil process, they have to have a sheriff's deputy serve that process. We've served 17,000 civil processes last year. And actually, in that division of the sheriff's office is self-sufficient, because an attorney will have to pay, I think it's a $35 processing fee. So he'll bring it down to the sheriff's office. The sheriff will then go and serve that, and that's also a dangerous job. I don't know if you read a couple weeks ago. I had a deputy that was serving a paper, and unfortunately, it's an eviction notice, and that is sometimes tricky. I mean, it's not fun to have a deputy show up and serve an eviction notice to somebody. And this particular individual, when the deputy pulled up, he had a couple of dogs, and he said, "Are these dogs okay?" And the guy says, "Well, this one may not be." And he said, "Well, would you please put the dogs away so I can get out of the car?" And he did. He put the dogs away, and he went out and he said, "I have to give this to you." And the guy said, "Well, wait a minute now. I've made a pay plan, or I've done some type of action so that I wouldn't get evicted. He said, I can get the paper for you. So he went to get the paper for the deputy, and somehow the dogs got loose from where he was, and the deputy saw one dog, and when he looked at the dog, and the other dog went and bit him in the leg.
Ooh.
And he, kind of came back a little bit, and the dog came at him again, and that's when he was forced to shoot the dog. And the dog was big, and it was a sad thing, and it bothered the deputy, but it was he had to go to the hospital for that bite.
See, there's all kinds of things you don't think about.
There is, and that's what makes the job so interesting. We're always trying to find things for the inmates to do, because if they work, for every 2 days they work, they get a day off their sentence. So yeah. So I mean, we've had the inmates, painting buildings for municipalities. We've had La Comesse.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, we'll send a crew down there. They love coming to La Comesse.
Of course.
Do that because the vendors and the city will feed them, and we have a list of inmates that want to come down and help set up for La Comesse. So that works out pretty well.
Well, you know what? That sounds pretty good. It's not as bad as I thought. Maybe you make it too good.
Well, you can see for yourself, but when people are there, I mean, they're not, like I said, 70% of them have not been convicted. So I mean, these are people that can't afford bail, and you just never know what's going to happen.
Do you ever have young people, teenagers?
No, we don't. It's just adults.
Adults.
Yeah.
All right, if these teenagers, say if they're drinking and they've had an accident or they're speeding, what do you do with them?
Well, if it's a criminal act, they would go to the main youth center, and then they would be held down there. And we have had juveniles that we've apprehended, and they can't be in an adult jail.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, and in some rural areas, like we're very fortunate because the main youth center is just down the street. But
Is that right?
Well, yeah, it's down the street. It's in South Portland.
Oh, okay.
So it's not too far.
I understand.
Well, we live in Maine. Everything is down the street.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll just take them to the main youth center, or in some rural areas where there's not a youth center, they have to separate the offenders from sight and sound. A juvenile can't even see or hear an adult offender, so that poses difficulty that we don't have to deal with. I want you to come and see for yourself.
I've got to come because you can see I have no idea.
Yep, and like I said, I'm having a tour of some Kittery folks, and I can't bring it up when it is, but I think it's in a couple of weeks. I'll be sure to call you.
Yeah, I'm from I was born in Kittery.
Oh, really?
Yep, I lived there 20 years.
Really?
My father had the store on the Navy Yard entrance many, many, many years ago, when there was only one entrance.
Have you seen that area down in Kittery?
No, I haven't been. My brother's still there.
Oh, it is. It's sort of like the old port in Portland. It's all renovated, and there's shops and there's restaurants.
I know. I'll have to go.
It's really quite a place.
It used to be like a village when I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. All these changes.
Yeah. The other changes that I've noticed, and I'm very passionate about it, is some of these scams. These scams have
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
It's awful.
It's horrible.
You have to be real rude or don't answer your phone.
And now the scammers are able to take your phone so that you look at it, and you brought my mind up on that, or you reminded me of that, because I got a call the other day, and the caller ID said the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. I thought it was somebody that was coming from the shipyard. I thought it was a government type of call. So I answered it, and it was a scam call, somebody trying to get me to buy something. And I'm hearing that a lot. And there's so many scams that are going on. It's just, they're so different.
You, you know, it's really bad. There's one, my friends have gotten it, and I've gotten it. They'll say that they're your grandchild.
Yeah.
And they have the voice, and if you're not wise and they need money, they're in trouble or something.
Yeah.
Awful.
And you have to be so careful. You know, there's also a scam that I haven't heard of it too much here, but I'm hearing about it out west, where they'll ask you some questions, and if you say yes, say, oh, is this so? Yes.
They say you said yes.
Yes. Then they record your yes, and then they'll make a phone call. Do you want to buy this? And they'll use that yes, and next thing you know, you're buying something that you don't really want or
I
need.
just hang right up, and I really don't want to say hello, but my family's so big that if I missed a serious call, I'd feel awful.
Yeah, yeah.
I just hang up. That's it.
And it's really too bad, but that's what I recommend people do. It's just that if you don't recognize it, just hang up, or screen your calls. Let it go to the answering machine, and then if you want to return the call, you can return the call. But you've got to be so gosh darn careful.
Isn't it awful? We go ahead with technology, but there's always something negative.
There is, yeah. And even on the computer. You know, I was talking to a man from Hollis the other day, and this guy is a builder. He is a very intelligent man, but he doesn't know much about computers. So he was on the computer. His wife normally does the computers. And he was on the computer, and something came up. You have a virus. Now, he knows that a virus is bad. And it says, click here if you want to get rid of the virus. And he clicked there. And then they said, you can buy this program. And he put in his banking information.
Oh,
And then he said, gee, something's wrong because they're asking me too many questions. He called his wife, and his wife says, unplug the computer, unplug the computer. And within an hour, they emptied out one of his accounts.
oh, isn't that awful?
And he's a businessman, and
You know why we don't think that way?
no.
You have to.
Unfortunately, you do. You do. Yeah, it's a different world.
It certainly is.
Yeah, it's a different world, and when I speak to a lot of groups, I look for opportunities to speak to groups just to warn people of all the different scams out there. I mean, we just recently had a scam in one of our rural communities where a woman went up to the house and says, "I lost my dog. Did you see a little dog?" And this woman says, no, I didn't. She says, oh my goodness. And then a guy showed up and says, yeah, I think it's up the street there. And while they were talking to this lady, the girl says, can I use your bathroom?
Oh, boy.
So she said, sure. It's right down the street. So the guy was talking to the homeowner. Meanwhile, this girl went in there, didn't go to the bathroom, but went around the house and went into the bedroom and stole some jewelry. And then she came out and says, oh, thank you very much. We'll keep looking. And then they leave, and the woman doesn't even realize she had been robbed. So, yeah, I mean.
They tell you they're the IRA. They tell you your credit card, all these things.
Yeah. The IRS scam is troubling.
I meant IRS.
Right.
Excuse me.
That's okay. The IRS scam is troubling because Americans, and I'm going to say especially Mainers, we are patriotic people. And so when they talk to an older person and they'll say, you have to pay your taxes. Mainers have been paying taxes for years. We're not happy about the taxes, but we pay the taxes because we understand how important they are, and they prey on that. They prey on our patriotism, and I think that's wrong. The IRS scam is troubling.
I meant IRS.
Right.
Excuse me.
That's okay. The IRS scam is troubling because Americans, and I'm going to say especially Mainers, we are patriotic people. And so when they talk to an older person and they'll say, do you want to, you have to pay your taxes. Mainers have been paying taxes for years. We're not happy about the taxes, but we pay the taxes because we understand how important they are. And they prey on that. They prey on our patriotism, and I think that's wrong.
It is wrong, but we've got to be wise, I guess. I don't know. Don't be too easy on them.
No.
Boy, I should be. I'd be a terrible officer.
No, why do you say that? Well, let's talk about that. You know, I look for officers, and we've got 19 positions. We're 19 positions down in the jail. So I encourage people to apply to be a corrections officer. And why am I so many positions down? Because we hire the best. We have officers that get recruited to go be police officers. They get positions at the shipyard. They get positions at Pratt Whitney. They get high-level positions. Now, I'm not happy that my officers get recruited away, but it speaks to the quality of people that we typically hire. But we start at $17 an hour, and I think it's great experience for somebody.
I have a question, and this isn't an easy one.
Okay.
With all these shootings in the schools, what can we do? I know they don't let people in the building, but they're still getting shot.
Right. Well, there's a program called the Sandy Hook Promise, and what this program is, it's sort of it's an initiative that if you see something, to say something, because remember, all of the shootings, there were some indications. There was very rarely was it well, actually, I don't think there is any shooting that was random. That people knew the person that was shooting. They knew that this person was troubled. There was somebody that said, "Oh, I knew this was going to happen," or this person was disgruntled, or this person broke up with this person, So people knew it, but nobody had the time to say, "Wait a minute, now we need to connect the dots to figure out where that person, if this person is a threat or not." That's why a school resource officer is very, very important, because that's his or her role, is to take that information. And if there is somebody that is a threat or feeling that they're disgruntled or what have you, that's their job. And it's also their job to tell kids or to tell students to report things, even if you don't know what it is. But if they see something that they need to report it, if they hear something, report it. You're not getting somebody in trouble. You're keeping your school safe.
What do you think about teachers having guns? That's a hard question.
It is a hard question.
I don't know the answer.
Well, and typically, I would be concerned with teachers having guns. We have our officers trained. I mean, we shoot twice a year. When I was a federal agent, I shot 4 times a year. There's a lot of responsibility when you carry a firearm, and I think that teachers have so much going on, and to be concerned about where your firearm is, and to keep that certification up, I think that would be very, very challenging. In fact, I want to mention something. When I first retired as a federal agent, I was a teacher. I taught at Central Maine Community College.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, I did. I really enjoyed that. But then the previous sheriff, Mo Willett, asked me, "Gee, are you looking for a summer job?" And I started out as the sheriff's office as a summer job. And then eventually I just came down here and I loved it. And I eventually came on full time. And people would ask me, why would you do this? Why would you leave, being a teacher, to go and work at the sheriff's office, to basically run a police department and run a jail and concern yourself with civil process? Why would you take on that type of responsibility? And I said, because I don't want the stress of being a teacher. So a teacher is very, very stressful.
Today, it's not like it used to be.
It's not, and there's so many things. I mean, go to a school. There's so many things going on, and they're responsible. They're responsible for those children. They're responsible for those children learning. So I'd have to give it a little bit more thought, and I'd want to be talking to a lot of teachers. Do they want to carry a firearm? I mean, you have a school resource officer in the school. Most schools have a weapon, and remember, it used to be, with Columbine, that if there was a shooting, they would go outside and wait for the SWAT team to come in, or the special weapons team special response team to come in and then take care of the threat. That's not the case anymore. The case now is that there's a threat that the school resource officer takes care of it. The first responding officers take care of it. And that's what we do training for that we don't wait for the special guys, we go right in, because when you wait, people get hurt. So what else about the sheriff's office?
Where's your horse?
Where's my what?
Oh, goodness, I love Westerns.
Yeah.
I really do. Isn't that awful? I just do.
Well, I spent a long time in Tucson, Arizona.
Did you?
I did. I spent 13 years of my life there. That's when I was a federal agent. That's where I met my wife, Margarita. And actually, you're right. I mean, it's really a Western town. And I went down to Tombstone. It's just, we were able to go into Mexico a lot. This was before the wall. But
when you were, what was your job there?
actually, I was with the IG's office, the Inspector General's office, and we did the internal affairs on all Department of Justice entities. So basically, we worked a lot with, we did investigations on the Border Patrol. If there was an internal affairs complaint on the Border Patrol, we would look at the FBI, the corrections officers in the Bureau of Prisons, and the U.S. Marshals. That's why, I have such I really enjoyed my career, because I got to do a little bit with a lot of folks.
You've got a lot of
to see what the
experience.
DEA did, what FBI did, what the Bureau of Prisons and the Border Patrol, and at the time, years ago, we had INS and we had Customs. So it was just a very varied career, which I really enjoyed.
Imagine.
And I started out as a Portland cop. And one thing that I tell people is, throughout my career, Maine people sometimes seem to have an inferiority complex, which we don't think that we're maybe good enough, or that other people are better. And that's just not the case. In my career as a federal agent, I was able to, as I traveled around, people would say, well, this person is the guy that you need to speak to. This person is the expert. And when I would go and talk to that person actually hailed from Maine.
How about that?
It was really something. I would go into meetings, and I would see something on the wall, and it looked like, from like South Portland Police.
The more we talk, the more I can see.
Yeah.
There's a great deal going on.
There really is, yeah. I'm going down to the Pines in, I think, 2 weeks to speak with them. I'm going to
My church.
to your church,
Yeah.
which I always enjoy going to your church.
The drop-in.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's really, it's exciting, and it's fun.
And you're going to talk about scams, I understand.
I am,
Good.
because
We need that.
well, yeah, it just seems that the scams have kind of started back up, and I think it might be because there's a thing called an automatic dialer that some scammers use, where they'll just set their computer and they make a phone call through their computer, and it's called, voice over internet protocol calling. And they'll set the computer, and then they start making phone calls, and they wait for someone to answer. And when somebody answers, they'll pick it up. Hello there, you won the lottery, or this is the IRS. You owe X amount of money. Who am I speaking to? And then they get into that. They have a regular script. And then sometimes there's somebody that they'll hire someone just to wait for the phone call and say, "Oh, is this ZAFFIE? Yes, ZAFFIE. Yes, you owe $750 to the IRS." And then they'll say, "Please go on hold." Then they'll put you on hold, and then somebody else will pick up, somebody more accomplished in scamming. And how did these people from Jamaica or Nigeria, how did they get so accomplished at scamming?
I don't know.
Well, about 10 years ago, a lot of the telemarketing companies exported their jobs to Jamaica or to some of these third world countries for the cost. So they set up these training sessions, and they trained people. And what does a telemarketer do? He or she makes a cold call, establishes rapport, and then tries to sell you something that you really didn't even think about. And that's the same technique as what a scammer does. Makes a cold call, establishes a rapport, and then finally goes in and tries to sell you something. And in this case, convinces you that you won the lottery.
It seems like Tuesdays is the day I get the most of those.
Really? So, that's interesting. I don't think we've ever done a study to find out what day is the most.
Tuesday in my household, because I'm home that day, and I can't do my work, what I'm trying to do, because I'm answering the phone.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, Tuesday.
So that's when you prepare for your shows?
That's when I do my column.
Column, yeah.
Yeah.
And that column is very well done.
Well, thank you.
You're a very good writer. I really admire people that are good writers, and it's difficult. Being a good writer is difficult, and you grab the interest, and it's always varied.
Thank you.
I like it when you talk about the Greek festival, and you talk about the different foods. That's really an interesting place also, when you have the Greek festival.
People like the food. They come in happy, and they leave happier. I know, I'm right there.
And how long does it take you to make all those cookies?
Yeah, months. Months and months. And it's getting so, I don't know how long we'll be able to do it, because the young folks are too busy, and the ones that did it are passing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's work.
Well, we have a similar thing at the Italian church at St. Peter's. We have an Italian festival, and I know that they run out of cookies all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. And my mother used to make the Italian cookies, and
those are good.
Yeah, and they've passed it on, so it's a great tradition. I hope it never ends.
It's good for people. Each culture keeps their culture a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep trying. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Well, our time is almost up.
Oh.
Tell us a little bit more about are you campaigning?
I am campaigning. Frankly, I enjoy that. I enjoy going to different places. I enjoy speaking to the public. And some people said, "Well, do you like doing that, or do you wish that you didn't have to campaign?" And ZAFFIE, it's what the election does. It makes sure that I'm doing the right thing, and the public is my boss. The citizens of York County that vote, they're telling me, are you doing the right thing or not? Are they pleased with how I'm running things? And it's what I call it. It's like my appraisal report. It's my report card, if you will. So I'm looking forward to November 6th to see what happens, and I'm certain that either way, I want this job. and I want to continue doing that. And I certainly hope that the citizens of York County feel that I'm doing a good job with
Well, you
it.
do a good job,
Thank you very much.
and you fit the position.
Well, thank you very much. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, our time is up.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you for
It's been a
having me.
pleasure,
Great.
and I wish you good luck.
Thank you very much.
It's going to be interesting.
Great.
And I am going to come to that jail
Wonderful.
because I have the wrong impression.
Yes. Yep. Great.
It'll make a nice story.
Yep. That's right. Oh, I can't wait for you to come. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Good.
Yeah, okay.
Good.
Well, folks, thank you for listening. I know you must have some questions you'd like to ask, and I can think of many more, but at least I found out what goes on in the jail. I like Westerns, I can't help it, because the good guy always wins.
Right.
But I don't like the shooting. They make it look so easy to shoot.
Yeah.
But I don't mind the fist fighting. In fact, I like it. So thanks again for listening. And as I always say, don't fall. Thank you. Love, ZAFFIE.